Joe, I texted you this during the game. Even if Colorado would have lost, they would have won the week because of how much different they look.
Yeah.
However, listen, I just did not think that Colorado had the depth defensively. We talked about this on Wednesday. Clearly, we were right about the lack of depth defensively. So don't come on this show beating yourself up when you say defensively they lack depth. Joe, they do. That is the bottom line. They lack depth. One thing we did talk about, though, on Wednesday, they have athletes all across the field. There is no debating that. When you add guys like Shedeur Sanders, you add guys like Edwards, you add guys like Travis Hunter, Horn, etc., they have green grass athletes. Joe, everybody's going to talk about Deion, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. They should. The key to that game was Sean Lewis, the offensive coordinator. He called arguably one of the best games, which in turn does need to give credit to Deion for hiring him. They are so much more well-coached than I ever expected them to be. They are so much better offensively. Shedeur Sanders threw for 510 yards yesterday, Joe, and sat in the pocket, did not want to run, forced the ball down the field. Here's the play of the game, though. 4th and 2, late in the game. Shedeur Sanders buys time, throws it to DeLeone Edwards, bang, touchdown, ball game. They are offensively, they can go up with anybody they want to if they have the green grass athletes. But the massive thing for me going away from this game and why I think now, Joe, you have to turn to say that they could go 7-5, max 8-4 potentially. They pushed TCU around up front, and it was amazing to see. The first rushing touchdown they had of the game, the little H-back fullback hit one of TCU's linebackers so hard, his grandchildren just felt that hit, okay? They are impressive up front offensively. Shout out to Deion and what they did because it was really, really fun to watch.
So what's often a common misconception when you do shows like this, people assume when you have a take that you're not allowed to come back and say
we're going to be wrong. We're
going to be wrong. And I am always going to be the first person, even though I speak with such vindication and honestly in absolutes when I talk about games, I will always come on here and admit I was wrong. And you know what? I laughed too much about what Colorado's capabilities were going to be against a team that played in the national championship last year. I overassumed that they would retool and be ready to go for this game and that they would start the season off strong. I also the odds were really stacked against Colorado. To bring in that many transfers in week 1 is a Herculean task. But the thing that I completely forgot about is the guy who's running this team. He is one of the best chemistry building coaches in all of college football. I can sit here and say that firmly. All those guys look bought in. And the biggest thing for me is that there's clearly a lack of depth. There is clearly a lack of
especially defensively up front.
Yes.
You cannot deny that.
I mean, the fact that Travis Hunter played as much as he did is a massive
snaps.
It's a massive accomplishment, but that's proof that they're lacking of depth, that he has to be on the field that much on both sides of the football for them to win that game. If he doesn't play that much, I don't know if they win. I don't know if they can finish that game out. But the biggest thing here is with all those guys clearly being dead tired in the heat, the Texas heat, weather that they're probably not used to as hot as it was, to keep fighting every single offensive drive. And then at the end of the game, when they needed to make a defensive stop, they did exactly that. There are still holes. There's still holes and there's still concerns that need to be figured out. But I'm all in on Deion. I've always been a supporter of Deion, Blake.
You have.
I have been in on him since his time he took over at Jackson State, but I was a little too realistic. It was a little too bullish and realistic for week 1.
Travis Hunter made a statement yesterday as arguably one of the best, if not the best player in college football.
Yeah.
Now, my good buddy, my mentor, Bill King, he's been, XM radio, has been the voice of college football a long time. He's a dude. I mean, the man knows more about college football that I've forgotten more about college football and its history than probably I know. And I texted him yesterday, and I said, "Man, is there ever been anything like Travis Hunter. And he said, yeah, Charles Woodson. And I was like, okay, well, that's fair because he won the Heisman, play both ways.
Yeah.
But I'm going to push back on what he said. I've never seen this. I've never seen a guy literally be on both sides of the ball almost every snap. Joe, here's the thing that sold me on Travis Hunter being a great player. Was not the interception, was not the touchdown that got called back, was not all the receptions. TCU or Colorado pinned TCU down to the 1. Okay. And they broke off a 75-yard run. Travis Hunter tracked down the running back to stop the play. Shilo Sanders made the tackle. Now, Shilo covered up a lot of sins in that secondary. A lot of sins in that secondary. So a lot of people want to talk about Shedeur. Shilo literally, you watch the film today, he saved them a lot of times. But Travis Hunter running down the running back, stopping the play, 4 snaps later, having the interception. So it looked like he was playing man coverage. He baits Morris, okay, to throw to the running back out of the backfield. The diving interception, I'm sold. He might be he is one of the best players in college football. Even though he's so great, though, I cannot walk away from this game not talking about Shedeur Sanders. It is hard to throw for 510 yards on air, much less do what he did. Joe, I look at him, and you can just look at the stat line, 38 of 47, 510 yards. The most impressive thing was he threw for 10.9 yards per completion. That is
nuts.
That is Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence. That is elite stats against a Power 5 opponent. Joe, they're going to upset somebody that they're not supposed to. Now, I look at their schedule. They got Nebraska next. I think they could beat Nebraska. Colorado State.
Yes.
But they go to Oregon. They got USC. They got UCLA on the road. They got Oregon State. Joe, we might look up at the end of the year and this team be 7-5, 8-4, and say to ourselves, my goodness, if they do what we think that they can do, Deion should be the coach of the year.
Absolutely. To that statement about him being the coach of the year, again, to get this team ready to play on a week-to-week basis like this. If this team finishes, I think it's realistic for them to get to shoot for 8 wins, for them to beat the weaker teams in the Pac-12 on their schedule, and then maybe they fall to those top programs that have been hanging around at the top for as long as they have. To talk about Travis Hunter, though, I don't know why one of the people I thought of that maybe is the closest to him was Miles Jack when he was at UCLA. Played a lot of running back, played a lot of linebacker, eventually ended up going full-time to linebacker. But he kind of did a little bit of that, but not at the same level of Travis Hunter. I texted you this, and I'm going to continue to go as far as to say this. If he is fully healthy, there are no injury setbacks for Travis Hunter, and he plays the whole season, maybe not 100 snaps a game. Maybe he plays like 80 a game, 90 a game, which he should be doing. That needs to be what the pace is. Otherwise, that's going to be very unsustainable. Nobody physically can endure that much contact. It's going to be really hard for him. But if he can play that much, make those plays, rack up those many receiving yards, get those interceptions, those turnovers, especially like the one that he had on the goal line, the guy's going to be at the Heisman podium. I don't know if he wins the award, but he will be at the podium. We will be talking about him. The media loves stories like this, which is why we are talking about him right now. He is going to be at the podium. Nobody has done this before. This is an insane feat that is never going to be matched on any level. This is Ohtani. This is Shohei Ohtani that everyone has been saying on Twitter.
I don't want to anoint him as that. Shohei Ohtani is the best baseball player in the world. I don't want to anoint him as that. He needs to go through a season. I do agree he could find himself at the podium. Joe, this has nothing to do with the media, though. This has everything to do with what he just did. The media take the media out of it.
The media picks the Heisman,
I get that. But what I'm saying is this isn't going to be trumped up because of media. He's just if this were anybody at Ohio State, if this were somebody at Alabama, Michigan, LSU, it wouldn't matter because they would be doing that. Now, he's just one of the best players. That's why he would be up there. It's not discrediting him to do that. Joe, here's the thing I walk away before we move on to Florida and Utah on this.
Yep.
It's going to be really hard to sell people on now that it takes that long to rebuild the team. So
okay,
when you talk, Joe, he had an 87 player change at Colorado. They won a game. When Colorado goes out there next week and beats Nebraska, they're going to double their wins. They were the worst team in college football last year. The simple nature that Colorado could be a middle tier average, above average team is going to show why in year one, if you get hired at a Florida, Billy Napier, you get hired at a USC defensively,
I see what you're saying.
Lincoln Riley. Hey, man, there is no excuse for Billy Napier. So to segue into this, because I'm sure we're going to talk about Billy Napier, hey, man, I don't mean this in a wrong way, but in a small way, Deion made Billy Napier look horrible.
He has I like this point. He has created extremely unrealistic expectations for your first year and second year head coaches. All these coaches are screwed. And I think that most administrations are going to be patient at most programs. And we're going to talk about Florida in a second and how this patience relates to it. But going forward, fans are not going to be patient. They've never been patient.
Nor should they be, Joe.
Yeah.
You had Brian Kelly a year ago. Y'all, people hate when I say this. You had Brian Kelly a year ago at this time when he started his season that had 39 scholarship players when he got there. He completely revamps the roster. Deion does the same thing. Joe, he could do damage in the pack like what I'm not going to say he can do what Brian Kelly did. That's a completely different scenario and situation. But you cannot, like, Joe, I look at Billy Napier today and say to myself, you are not only underperforming, you are vastly underperforming. I look at Lincoln Riley and USC defensively. You are vastly underperforming. It's not an excuse anymore. What Deion just did was create the ultimate chaos. We talked about this on Wednesday. It's like your boy from The Dark Knight, Heath Ledger. One little mare dies and everybody believes it's chaos. He creates chaos. Deion just created chaos in the best way possible. If you're a fan today of a big-time program, there is zero excuse for you not – what happened to Florida on Thursday, there's zero excuse for Billy Napier. None.